This is Creative Banter, a creativity and philosophy-focused podcast hosted by Cody Schultz and Ben Horn. Our conversation begins with discussion regarding Ben's recent trip to Hawaii and some thoughts he had while enjoying the warm weather, while the rest of us dealt with the blistering cold. One of his thoughts places us into our main conversation, where we discuss whether we must always be a photographer. We ask what that looks like for each of us, whether we feel compelled to bring a camera at all times, and more. The conversation ends with talking about both mental and physical health, running, stoicism, and how it ties into hiking as a whole. Let's dive right into it, shall we?
So I am still on island time. Which is nice. So I hear you've had some not so wonderful weather where you are right now.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been great. It's been kind of just cloudy, overcast. The weather or the temperatures itself are they're all over the place. Like we have days that it's like 50 degrees, and then like I think tomorrow and this weekend it's supposed to drop down to like the 20s.
Yeah.
And then next week it's supposed to bump right back up to like the 40s or 50s. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, my wife and I just returned from Maui, and we had some interesting weather there as well. Most of it was very pleasant. You know, it was like 82 degrees and sunny and fantastic beach weather. There was a system that rolled through in our last few days, and some people listening to this might have heard on the news about there was a flight from, I don't know if it was from Arizona or Texas, but they're going to Honolulu, and they got hit with some pretty bad turbulence, and a lot of people were hurt on that. And that storm, when that rolled through when we were in Maui, it was a pretty big storm. We were staying in this VRBO right on the beach. I mean, literally from our balcony, you just look right down and like you're right on the sand. When we watched that storm roll through, it's just like, lightning and thunder and, sideways rain. And it didn't amount to too much where we were, but on other parts of the island, there was lots of trees down, there was power out. So it was an interesting experience. But for the vast majority of the time, really good beach weather. Did some snorkeling, saw turtles, saw whales from the balcony.
Nice.
And it was nice. The trip started out a little bit interesting though. It was supposed to be a 2 p.m. flight, and there was actually a little bit of rain in San Diego, and so as a result, our airplane was sitting at the gate that we were supposed to get on, but we were missing a pilot, and that's you got to have one of those. So
So they say.
Yeah. So, and it turns out that the flight crew for our flight they were diverted to Ontario, which is kind of east of the Los Angeles area. And so from what we understand, the pilot basically had to hop in an Uber, drive down to San Diego, and then as soon as he got there, we boarded the plane and we took off. It was about a 3-hour delay, but at the same time, you got a plane full of people going to Maui, everyone's happy. No one's complaining. So that worked out pretty well. But leading into the trip, since there are so many bugs going around, cold, flu, COVID, everything else, and I know I've heard of so many people that they've caught whatever that bug is that's going around. And so my wife and I were like, we do not want to ruin our vacation by being sick. I mean, if you're going to be sick, if you're in Hawaii, I guess it's better than being in Detroit or somewhere else if you're sick. But so before heading out on the trip, there was like a little family gathering we went to, and so we decided to wear masks for that because like we don't want to risk anything. And there was a lot of people around for that one. And then on the plane, they were like, yeah, we're going to wear N95s the whole time. We're not going to eat or drink anything on the plane, not going to take off the mask, going to avoid touching stuff. And sure enough, about halfway through the flight, and it was about a 5-hour flight, like 5.5 hours. But about halfway into the flight, there was a guy about 3 rows ahead of us, and he started not feeling well. And it was the whole thing where, is there a doctor on the plane kind of a scenario? And so sure enough, there was a doctor on the plane, and he went over and was, checking everything. And sure enough, it looked like he had influenza. And so on this entire flight, there were, I think, including my wife and I, probably about 8 people wearing masks. And I think at that point, when there's a person who's, exhibiting signs of influenza, and just, I feel really bad for the guy, because, you're trapped on a plane, you're halfway to Hawaii, and you just start feeling really bad. So I feel really bad for the guy, but also I'm just thinking, like, all the people that are kind of sitting right near him, they're like, oh man, this is going to be a rough one. So we landed, we went to our spot, and it was nice there. I mean, we had no real agenda. We had no real plans. I didn't even bring a camera, which is one of the things where, like, if it's not a dedicated photography trip, I'm very happy to leave the camera behind, because it just changes the whole purpose of it. And so I just brought a GoPro just to get some footage of snorkeling with my wife and hanging with the turtles. But yeah, I mean, it was great. And as we were kind of near the end of the trip, in the last few days or so, I heard from my parents, and they ended up actually catching COVID, and they're fine. It was kind of like a nagging cough sort of thing. But there's a high chance that they probably caught it at the gathering that we were at.
Yeah.
And so if we hadn't worn masks, we probably would have caught both the flu and COVID.
Oof.
And then have to fly back. Yeah. So if anyone is doing any traveling right now, maybe you're listening to this on a plane. Maybe you pre-downloaded this. You're listening to it on a flight, and you got that little mask sitting in your pocket. You decide, hey, I don't need to wear that. Yeah, put it on. It was nice, because we're well beyond the time where we would notice if we'd caught anything, and thankfully we didn't. But it was a good trip. But the whole reason for mentioning all that was the topic that came to mind, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. And then we may have touched on this a little bit in the past, but the fact that you don't always have to be a photographer. And I think for so many people, they form their identity around being a photographer. And then there's that saying, something along the lines of, the best camera is the one you have with you, or something like that, which I'm sure everyone's heard before. But it's nice to be able to just turn it off, to not worry about it, not think about it, and just put it completely out of mind. And just to go out and just to relax, to enjoy. The volcano was going off when we were there. It shut off not long after we got there. And I know that people were flying there to go, like, photograph the volcano and all that. But, like, I had no desire at all. And it was nice just to sit on the balcony, enjoy the view, watch the waves come in, and to not even think about photography. So I'm curious, from your standpoint, are you able to easily turn off photography, or what are your experiences along those lines?
I think a lot of the times I'm turning on photography more than I'm turning it off.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, at least. Like, a lot of the times when I'm going out into the woods or wherever, it's all about being in the woods rather than doing something in nature.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've had to work for many years, and it's taken me a long time to get to that point. But then there are also times where, like, I would love to get, and I plan to get, like an old X Pro 1 from Fuji with like a 35 millimeter equivalent. So a little digital camera just to carry around to document like the trips that my dad and I do on the bikes or just daily life, like whatever. Just for in the future when I get older and if for some reason I decide to have kids or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
To look back at those moments and be like, oh yeah, okay, maybe this is just, in the moment, it was just us splitting wood, like in the backyard or whatever. But to look back fondly on those memories, because that how you look at things is going to change as you get older.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that'll be great to have something like that. Yeah.
For that purpose, yeah, I definitely plan on getting like a little digital camera. Maybe even I had rented a X100V from Fuji back in June to document my second cousin's first birthday or something, and that was a pleasure to use. And so I've considered getting one of those as well. So at some point I will. And to go back more towards the topic itself, it's in those instances, it would take me a while to start turning photography on more often.
Yeah.
To realize, hey, this is a moment that, do I want to live in this moment and enjoy it, or do I want to document this moment and enjoy it later?
Yeah, because you kind of have to decide it. It's really difficult to do both. I mean, at least that's been my experience, where you're either in the mode where you're taking pictures or you're in the mode where you're more present. I mean, I think of Matt Day when it comes to, documenting his family. And I feel like he has a very nice balance with that, where he's able to very effortlessly take the photos of his family while still being completely involved.
It's tough. It's a really tough dichotomy that you're pushing there, because and that's the problem with smartphones. Like, that's something that I don't think we had prior to smartphones, where people go to like concerts and people aren't standing around or dancing to concerts anymore so much as they are taking videos of the concerts, of the singing, of the moments, or whatever.
And they'll probably never look at that video.
No, I guarantee you they will look at it maybe to share with their friends on Instagram or whatever. Yeah. Or like the next day or something like that.
As proof they were there.
Exactly.
But all the while robbing themselves of the actual experience itself.
Yes. I try my hardest to, if I go to like a concert, pre-COVID, I've went to a couple with my girlfriend, and I don't think I have like any photographs from that night. I certainly don't have any videos from that night. I might have like one or two just of her and I at the concert. Other than that, it's me standing around enjoying the music.
Yeah.
And that's something that is so unfortunately lost in today's world, because people just want to constantly document things because they can. But it's a matter of, you don't have to. Like, half the photographs that are on my phone, I'll never look at.
Yeah. Mine are mostly just pictures of dogs and cats. Let's be honest.
Yeah, mine's mostly like screenshots of quotes, and then I forget that they're there. Yeah. Or like photographs of, like right now I've been painting these resin printed minifigures. Like I have one that my cousin has a resin printer, and so I found this file, and it's a little figure of Stitch surfing on a wave. Oh. And my girlfriend loves Stitch, so as a Christmas present, I painted that, glued it together, and gave it to her.
That's cool.
So I have a couple pictures of those. But, I mean, other than that, half the photos I don't even bother to look at.
Now, you had mentioned possibly getting a camera like one of the Fujis just for like the family sort of stuff. Do you take any family photos right now with anything other than the cell phone? Or is there anything is that anything you've done in the past at all?
Not really. Just because it's really hard to document certain things with large format.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, come on, could you imagine like trying? Hold on, Dad, you're in a perfect position there. I know you're splitting wood, but wait a second. I want to get my camera, set this up. Give me like 25 minutes just in that position.
And it's gonna be a long exposure, so
Yeah. We're losing light here. You got to hold that position for maybe like 5 minutes extra or whatever.
Yeah.
Reciprocity, all that fun. No, there's no way.
Yeah.
Even with the RB67 that I have now, I haven't touched that in a while. I haven't touched any of my cameras in a little over a month now. But if I'm gonna do something, I want to have a very small form factor with it, where it's just as easy as pulling out my cell phone, except it has a purpose.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing with any camera that I get. I want it to have some sort of purpose. So like the large format is my main camera. It's for all of my woodland. The RB67 is more for like projects that I plan on doing, collections of images, because I'm able to take more. Yeah. And so kind of finishing that off with a documentation camera.
Yeah, I have I did bring a little RX100 to Hawaii, just because it'll take better photos than like the front-facing camera on my iPhone. And I'm just looking for just some like fun pictures just to put on the wall, just like pictures of us standing on the beach, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I did bring that along, but I just pulled that out like on the last day when we're kind of walking along the beach before getting things packed up to head to the airport, and we have some pictures from that. But thinking back to like when I first got into photography, I'd bring my camera to like family events and stuff like that. But to be honest, it wasn't very well received. People didn't really enjoy having their pictures taken. And so at a certain point I just kind of gave up and just didn't even, I don't take pictures anymore for family stuff really. Just cause it felt like it was more so like I was being more of like a nuisance than anything. Like people like, put their hand up like, I don't want my picture taken.
Yeah. So I've gotten that in the past too.
Yeah. And it's not a great thing. I mean, at a certain point, I'm just like, well, I'm just not going to take pictures then, and there you go, which is not a good thing. But I look at some of the stuff that Matt Day has done and has all these pictures of his family, his kids growing up, his parents who have since passed away, and he has such an amazing record and also so very artfully done. And so I think also it has to do with the sort of cameras. I mean, he's worked with a variety of them, but working with a Leica where you can just focus by feel, hold up real quick, click, very nonchalant, very not discreet. Even think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're just kind of become more one with that camera, which I think lends itself to that type of photography. But I'm not going to be buying a Leica anytime soon. I've got no real desire for that.
Yeah, no. Like I said, my big motivating factor about any of this is just the trips that my dad and I have been taking on the motorcycles, just because it's something that would be fun, even if it's not like photographs of him or I or any of that, but photographs of the passing moments of like the fields how we pass and that kind of thing.
Just stuff for memories,
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't always have to be photographs of your parents or grandparents or whomever, but like even if you're playing cards, a photograph of their hands holding the cards kind of deal would be just as meaningful, if not more so.
Oh yeah.
Which is definitely a way to get around people not wanting their photographs taken because they don't want their face in it, kind of thing.
Exactly. And kind of it gives a little more of the storytelling aspect, sort of the photojournalist sort of aspect, and there's something about seeing a photo, the details like that, which I think really helps to trigger memories in a way that just regular pictures don't necessarily as much. Like, if you just see a picture where there's some people standing there posing for the camera, it's cool to see that, and it might trigger a little something. But when you got pictures of that, that card game being played, I think those are the pictures you look back on that will trigger those sort of memories that will be probably more meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking on new cameras, I'm sure people have heard about this already because there have been numerous YouTube videos even prior to us recording this today. But Pentax, who is, I guess, owned by Ricoh.
Yeah.
They are coming out with a new film camera, or
Oh.
so they claim. It wasn't officially announced that they're making one. It's not like a firm commitment or any kind of release, but they do have a video that essentially outlines that they're taking steps, the beginning steps, to look at whether they can make a new film camera, whether the machinery is still whether it's feasible. And they have a short, maybe like 30-second clip of beginning design, of like a physical design of what looks to be a 35 millimeter camera.
Does it seem like it's more of like an all manual style, or something more like the more recent ones where they got a little plasticky and not quite as classic?
Right now, from the video from this short little snippet that they posted, it looks to be just like the very basic framing of it. Not even like any kind of exterior body, but all internals kind of thing. Okay. Internal framing, along with the classic lever was pretty much what it had to it. So you can tell that it's going to be a 35 millimeter just because of the shape and size of it. I don't think they're going to be releasing a Pentax 673 or re-releasing a 672 like what everybody wants. But at least not yet.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
It's still a step in the right direction. Absolutely.
Yeah, and especially if it's got the lever on the back, then it would be a manual wind, which I think there's a lot of people looking for something. I mean, there's people that are buying cameras used because that's just where you find them, but I think there's a lot of people that'd be interested in buying something new, just because it's so uncommon these days to have something that's new and hopefully keeps the film industry, going along. So that's exciting to hear.
Plus, it's the idea that you're able to get parts for it. You're able to get it repaired. Like, you're not going onto the used market buying a 50, 60, 70-year-old camera and then it breaks and you're out $600 to $1,500 or more. Yeah. And the one thing that I think that at least I'm hoping that they get right with this, and someone had said it in a video that they posted about this, how I found out, they need to keep everything manual. They shouldn't be going toward a fully automatic or close to automatic film camera, because that's not why people buy film cameras.
No.
People buy film cameras because they want to slow down. They want to have more control. They like the nostalgic aspect of it, even the younger generations who are looking at them. So, in order for you to make this as successful as possible, you have to step back in time and leave the technology, at least to a degree, behind. And it seems from their from the initial video that they posted and the press release, or whatever you want to call it, that they did, it kind of seems like they get that. Like one of the things that they said was along the lines of being forced to slow down with film. So it seems like they understand that aspect, and I'm hoping that they do, but only time will tell.
And when I used to work at the camera store, I mean, we had a selection of used cameras. And when I first started working there was a huge selection of used cameras, but that's mostly because people were selling cameras, not buying them. And so as the years went by and as digital became a bit more mature than it was, then we had a hard time getting used cameras in because people had already sold them all. And then we had a lot of people starting to really look to buy them. And in the process of just kind of like playing with all the cameras that we had in there through the years, there's something about the old manual 35 millimeter cameras where they're just, so many of them were built like a tank. And then when you look through that viewfinder, it's big, huge, bright viewfinder.
Yeah.
So much bigger than you'd see with, the more recent 35 millimeter cameras, because they're having to split light to a focus sensor and all kinds of stuff like that. But then when you compare it to a mirrorless camera with electronic viewfinders are fabulous tools, but it doesn't match the same experience as looking through one of the viewfinders on one of those old cameras and just seeing how big and how bright and how real it all looked, which I think leads to more of a connection with the subject. So I can see for like, shooting people, shooting stuff like that, I can see how that would be beneficial. For landscapes and stuff, yeah, I mean, the electronic viewfinders, they give you good tools, but man, I think if there's people now who have not worked with those old manual 35 millimeter cameras, and if they're really accustomed to what it's like to work with the current cameras, I think they'd be surprised when they look through the viewfinder of a old manual 35 camera, because it's a gorgeous sight. It really is very beautiful.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Pentax does, and hell, maybe we'll even get Mamiya to be resurrected by someone. Someone will buy up Mamiya's name and patents or whatever goes on with that, and resurrect some of the older medium format cameras.
Yeah, because I think there a lot of people, especially those that aren't working with film, I think it's easy to look at it and say, oh, it's just a fad. It's just, going back to, retro stuff, like, how vinyls come back and all that sort of stuff along those lines. And I think it's very easy to dismiss it as just one more fad, just something that was old becoming new again. But I don't think that's the case. Sometimes I'll hear from people that have worked with film in the past. They did not enjoy the experience because they were forced to work with it. And they have a hard time understanding why anyone would want to work with film now. But there's something about it. There's something about the whole experience of it. And I don't know about 35. I haven't worked with 35 lately, at least. But there is something about it. And I think when you see a company starting to consider building cameras again, I think it's a sign that film is not going away in the way that some people think it is. I think it's definitely here to stay, and there's reasons certainly behind that.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a reason why this stuff is coming back. Like, it's not just a fad per se that vinyl and film is making such a resurrection, even if it's over a longer period of time than what,
because we would have been over that fad by now. Like, when I started shooting film, like, I don't know, 2008-ish, somewhere in that range. Well, I should say when I went back to shooting film in that time, because I'd worked with it before. But when I went back to it, it wasn't really coming back that much yet. But I'd say probably, I don't know, a few years after that, 2012-ish maybe, somewhere in that range, that's when things started to come back a little bit. And here we are 10 years later, and I feel like the momentum is only building as opposed to it kind of fading away.
I mean, look at Ilford.
Yeah,
I know
that's true.
We constantly bring him up, but Ilford is continuously doing things for the film community. Look at Intrepid. Intrepid wouldn't exist and wouldn't be releasing a 5x7 camera or new iterations of their 4x5 and 8x10 if there wasn't a market for it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not. I think the thing about film that so many people start to think of it as a fad because of is like all of the influencers on social media.
Yeah.
Like, you have like the Kylie Jenners, and you have all these celebrities who are using these old film cameras because, oh, it's the next cool thing. Or like I've seen on various sites or even on YouTube with their shorts, like people trying to push the iPhone 3 right now is apparently a big thing. Like,
really,
the camera to an iPhone 3. Yeah. It's apparently understand. Amazing. I don't get why people are so obsessed with this, because I showed my girlfriend this video where someone was comparing an iPhone 3 camera to I think an iPhone 12 or 13 camera, and they were saying how much better the iPhone 13 or the iPhone 3 was than the 13. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, what? Like, there's no shadow detail. Everything's muddy. The contrast is terrible. The colors are god awful.
Yeah.
And you like this more? Not something that is a fad. That is absolutely something that it's here now, it's gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you can't look at film and say the same thing, because just like you said, 10 years ago, it was climbing back up in the ranks, and it's still climbing.
Yeah, the whole thing about the old iPhone images, I feel like that's probably more in like the clickbait category, where someone's just creating something along those lines just to draw some attention in, because it's not like the process of working with an old iPhone is any different than working with the current one. It's probably just a little bit more, I don't know. Like I don't even think my old iPhone will power up anymore. I got one sitting in a drawer next to a bunch of old pencils and miscellaneous parts from stuff.
Let's sell it on eBay for a couple $100 maybe.
Yeah, he'll be worth a ton somehow. I don't know how that works,
but in the worst ways possible, it'll be worth a ton.
Yeah, that's crazy. I was not aware of that. I to me that just strikes, and I haven't seen the video. I don't know anything about it, but to me that strikes a sort of attention-seeking sort of thing, as opposed to someone actually interested in that. Yeah.
I don't quite understand some of the fads that come along with TikTok and all that. The other one was like the old Fuji cameras, like the 100 series, the X100 series, whatever. They're great cameras, but there's better out there. And the biggest thing that they always peddle is, oh, this is how your favorite influencers are getting such great photographs. I'm like, no, it's not. They're not using an iPhone 3. They're not using a Fuji X100 for these photos. They're using the latest and greatest technology, editing it so it looks kind of vintage, and then telling you the other thing that they're using, apparently.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's something about the whole hive mind kind of thing where, one person sees something and then everyone else has to kind of go along with it. I've always been kind of sitting on the sidelines looking at stuff like that. I'm like, you people are crazy. I don't get it. I totally don't understand that sort of mentality. But it's also good because then at the same time, I don't feel like I have to try to, keep up with whatever is popular, whatever is cool, whatever the latest trends are. Like even the word like trending, like when I hear that word, it gives me goosebumps. I'm just like, no, I don't. I'm like repulsed by it. Certain words like that, I just like. It just it makes me want to steer clear of it. So
makes me glad I'm happy not a part of that.
Yeah, I'm happy to not be part of that. Happy to resist that while I'm working with my perhaps temporarily cool film camera. But we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how that goes in the long run.
Temporarily cool for the rest of your life, but it's only temporary.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, also, on the topic of uncool things. So when we were in Hawaii, so we got there mid-December, and if you go back, I don't know, to like June or so. So June is when my wife bought me a pair of inline skates for my birthday. Which we've talked about a lot in the past. But so basically ever since then, I've just been like going out as often as I can, in some cases daily, going out skating because it's just a really good workout. It's fun. So, and that is seen as something that is incredibly uncool to the largest degree. But let me just say this. If you skate a lot, inline skating, good workout, if you do that for months and months on end, by the time you get to Hawaii, if you do something uncool long enough, you will actually have a six-pack. So I think there's some life lessons in that, where if you do something uncool long enough, eventually you probably still won't be cool, but you might get a six-pack. So that was a nice welcomed addition when we were in Hawaii. And I think sort of goes along with my mantra in life of do things uncool, and eventually you still won't be cool, but maybe you'll have abs. So that is That was nice, I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm hoping that come summertime I'll be able to start running more. I've actually,
Yeah.
because of going through physical therapy and all of that for my knee,
Mm-hmm.
it's been pretty successful so far with my running.
Well, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
I've actually
What?
been able to do some intervals. They gave me this like back to running program thing that levels you up
Mm-hmm.
to actually getting back to running, of course.
Yeah.
Um, and right now I think I'm at like the third level. So you walk for a tenth of a mile, then you jog for 3/10 of a mile, and you do that back and forth until you get to 2 miles. So it takes me about half an hour to get to that point or so.
Mm-hmm.
But just did it yesterday, level 3 for the first time, and
Nice.
feel pretty good. Like, don't have any knee pain, don't have shin splints. Obviously, my endurance is absolute trash, but it's
That'll certainly build up
yeah,
with more time and practice.
yeah. But it's so far looking pretty good. I need to start getting into stretching some more, just because, like, especially afterwards, just to make sure that I keep injuries like at bay.
Yeah.
But I
Are
am
they
looking
saying
forward
that
to it.
that's when if everything goes well with all that? Are they saying that it's something that you will recover from and that will kind of be it, or do you think it will be something to keep an eye on for quite a while and kind of keep on top of, or have they given you any insight on that?
In terms of my knee, you mean,
Yeah.
or yeah,
Yeah, your
yeah.
knee.
So, pretty much, it's definitely gotten stronger by quite a bit. I mean, if you would have told me 2 or 3 months ago that I'd be even doing these interval runs,
Mm-hmm.
I would have laughed at you, just
Yeah.
because like
It's like
the
how can you do that when it's painful and
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, just like hopping on one leg for I think my second therapy session was the amount of pain was like it wasn't unbearable, like I could do it,
Yeah.
but it definitely made itself known. So to be able to run where you're constantly putting impactful pressure on your knee, it's definitely a change. So
Yeah.
it seems as though I'll be able to continue through with this for a while.
That's good.
My goal is to not do like marathons right away next year, but to at least start doing some like 5Ks, 10Ks throughout the summer.
Oh, cool.
So that's right now. That's my trajectory. But
What's the longest? Do you know the longest you've ever run?
I think 3 miles, maybe 2 miles.
Okay.
Probably right around there. So roughly a 5K. It's tough to say because of the pain and everything with shin splints at that
Yeah.
point when I was running a lot. And it's been 3 years or so since that. So it's kind of tough to pinpoint exactly what it was, what I was doing. But primarily I was at like maybe the 2 mile mark was like my max.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I haven't had any knee or ankle or foot or any sort of issues. I haven't really gone running in a while. It's something I always enjoyed to start the day off. But I haven't done that for a while just because I've been doing the skating. But yeah, I think and I know some people really get into it. They want to do like the half marathon, full marathon, all that kind of stuff. I think the longest I've ever gone running was 10 miles. And I basically just reached the route that I have that I can run through my neighborhood. I ran that, and I think that was probably about 6 miles or so. Then I'm like, yeah, let's just see if I go to 10. And after doing the 6 miles, beyond that, I was kind of in a rhythm and everything was fine. I could have kept going even beyond that. But I've never pushed anything beyond that. So I've never really gotten the whole runner's high that some people talk about, which I think you gotta go a lot further in order to get that.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, my ultimate goal as a whole, even if I don't necessarily do like the races or any of that stuff, I want to do the races just because most of them are for good causes.
That's true.
And it's like charitable events kind of thing. which you run and you feel good, and then you run for a reason and you feel even better. So I like that aspect of it. But
Yeah.
primarily, I would love to just be able to wake up in the morning, go for like a 4 mile run, and just feel good with that. Like that's a daily 4 mile run or 5 days a week kind of thing like that. I don't plan on getting to like Casey Neistat or Ryan Holiday kind of status where they're like 12 miles a day and that's just our warm up. Like, no.
See, I haven't gotten, there's so much to that where like I could do a run like that, but then I'm wiped out for like several days. Like I'm just like fully drained. So I don't know how people do that. I know they you gotta be eat enough calories and get enough fuel and everything, but I don't know. I don't know how people can do that, but it's pretty impressive how people are able to condition their bodies. I've noticed that even just from doing the skating, it's actually kind of changed the way my leg muscles are, which I gotta figure is probably beneficial for going on the hikes. Because I think that's also something where when people are, especially doing landscape photography, it certainly takes a fair amount of, being physically fit in order to get to some of those areas. But I guess that's kind of a question for people listening in terms of if there's anything in particular that they do while they're at home in order to, whether it's exercises, stretching, anything like that, to further help them while they're in the field. Because I do notice that when I started running, then I was certainly a lot better on the backpacking trips. That really helped out a lot. And by skating, I think it's really kind of works different muscles, especially since it's kind of like a side-to-side pushing off motion, which I think is using some of the same muscles that control kind of like as you're hiking with a pack on, it kind of, as you kind of sway back and forth a little bit, it kind of holds your position a little bit better. And so I think it works pretty well for that. But I'd be curious if anyone who's listening has anything that they would recommend, maybe over on the Discord to let us know on that, because that would always be good to know. I'm always looking for tips and things along those lines.
Yeah, definitely. Especially as we go into 2023, I think it's something that's on the top of everybody's mind is, I want to make this year the year that I get healthy.
Yeah, it's every year, right?
yeah, exactly. For me, it's been so I typically drink like a lot of iced tea, like raspberry iced tea has always been my thing. But the past week or so, I've been forcing myself to drink water. And so now I'm at a point where I don't even keep iced tea around. Like it's downstairs in the main like family room or family kitchen, so to speak. Whereas my kitchenette has some of the overstock of iced tea and stuff that my parents drink, but I don't drink the same. And just trying to make healthier decisions in that regard.
Yeah.
Especially as we go into 23. And like with this running and everything, I'm like, I want to go into the hiking and camping season at such a stronger and healthier standpoint than I ever have before. Yeah. Because I know that I'll feel better. And if I feel better, I'll be more in tune with my creativity and with nature and all of the above. And it'll just be an all-around better experience. So trying to make those changes now while I have the motivation to make them and then hope that they stick.
If you're out in the field, if there's anything that is not going quite right, even a small thing, does it take you out of being able to shoot photos, or are you still able to stay in the right mindset you need to be in?
It depends what it is. If it's something that like just really messes with my emotions, like if all of a sudden, I don't know, I see someone like throw trash on the ground or something like that right in front of me and I just get pissed off. Then it can take a while for me to recover from that to get back into a creative mindset. And depending on where along the trip that is, it can just ruin the whole experience, or it's one of those things where you have to be really, or at least I have to be really in control of my emotions and emotional well-being,
Mm-hmm.
especially dealing with my like depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's something that I want to continue to work on throughout the next year, along with like the practices of like stoicism and controlling your mind, because it's the only thing that you have control over in the world. So it can definitely take me out of the experience, but I'd like to work to the point where it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm very easily broken out of whatever sort of trance it is I need to be in order to work, for everything to be right. Like if I'm sitting there trying to work and all of a sudden like I've had it where just like my shoelace breaks, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, well, it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, I get that.
Because just something like that, all of a sudden, like that, like my one boot is now a little looser than the other one, and I'm sitting there and like the conditions are still good, but I'm like, this is bugging me so much right now. Like I can only concentrate on the fact that one of my boots is laced a little bit tighter than the other one. And I don't think I should be a photographer anymore. I think I should just hang up my hat, and I think I should just move along to something else, because this has destroyed my trip. So I get into stuff like that sometimes. But yeah, then I have to just kind of like just focus. All right, just tie those two ends together. We'll make another lace out of this, and all will be well. And it usually is. But yeah, I'm very easily distracted like that. So yeah, you don't always have to be a photographer. And sometimes when your shoelace breaks, I'm not a photographer anymore.
If I could give one recommendation as we wrap this episode up, in terms of dealing with emotions and instances like that, if for those listening, if you have not already, and it's something again that I plan on doing come the new year, look into Ryan Holiday's trilogy, his Stoicism trilogy. I'm blanking on the names of them right now, which is not a good thing when you're trying to recommend something.
Well, like the Google machine will work for that for a second.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. The obstacle is the way, ego is the enemy, and discipline or stillness is the key. Those are his 3 books on Stoicism. I highly recommend reading through those.
I'll have to check those out.
They're very good books. And that's I recommend them obviously because I've read them, but also because that's what Ryan Holiday does. He is all about this stoicism thing. He has multiple books on Marcus Aurelius, on the various Stoics. He has a book, The Daily Stoic, which just goes through daily meditations. Again, really simple, quick read. The idea is that you read one of these meditations per day, and he kind of breaks it down into plain English for you. There's a journal that he sells that goes along with that or whatever. But nonetheless, highly recommend picking up this original trilogy just because it has changed the way that I see the world to a emotional degree. So if you are someone who would like to gain better control of your emotions and a better understanding that the only thing that you can control is your mind, as in your perception of the world, I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That sounds fascinating. And at some point, once I read those, it'd be interesting to have a conversation on that and some of the things learned along the way.
Alrighty. And since this is going to be our last episode published in 2022, look forward to seeing everyone in the new year.
Yeah, we'll be back and we'll have more exciting shoelace stories to tell. I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.